What is good, everyone? Today I got for you guys the best settings guide for all of Battlefield 6. I'm going to take care of your controller settings, your graphics settings, your HUD, everything like that. We're going to have you fully dialed in. So let's get into it. I know they didn't make the settings that easy to find, but I'll make sure you guys are taken care of. All right, so first thing to do is just to follow along with me. I'm going to be using my mouse. I'm playing controller on PC just to be able to toggle through these things, make it a bit easier to show y'all what I'm talking about. So we're going to go to edit settings. We have, of course, a variety of things in here, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go straight into our control settings. And here is where we have to take a bit of a look at stuff. So first thing you can see our infantry aim assist sensitivity. This is going to be, I think, at a default 100. I personally play it at 45. I don't like to move around that fast. I would suggest moving this to maybe like a 60, 50, 45, kind of altering it in there. You don't have to move around that fast in Battlefield, so it does help you out. For next up, your field of view, keep in mind this little box right here is going to be what I have changed. Everything else is going to be just totally left alone, that it does not have that box by it. So I left that off. Field of view, I play at the maximum 120. If you play on like a TV or something, maybe not the best for you. Maybe you play like 110, maybe 100. But otherwise, if you're playing on a monitor, something like that, where you're pretty relatively close to it, playing 120, it will help you out. Your vertical aim ratio, I've left this totally the exact same. Don't need to mess with that. Uniform infantry aiming, just you leave that on. Your zoom sensitivity coefficient, this is a really weird setting, but I've left this at 100. I don't think you really need to change this all that much. I shouldn't say left it, I turned it to 100. So I would try that out in combination with your infantry aim sensitivity, and that should help you guys out a decent bit. Of course, all these things right here, your infantry aim assist slow down, infantry aim assist zoom snap, you want to leave these all at 100. No reason to lessen any of the aim assist you get. Does not make sense. Here's what we've changed: the infantry aim input curve. Mine is currently on Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4. I think some people on console don't have access to this, so you can definitely try it out. I actually have tried like standard. I think that's actually pretty good, but my preference right now is Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4. It feels very nice to me, so I'm sticking with that. Now, my stick input acceleration presets, I actually have this on Battlefield 4, 3, and Battlefield Bad Company, and then I actually have turned this to aiming left-right acceleration to 30. I played with it at a 0 for a long time. I've been experimenting for a bit with it on like a 30. I may mess with it a little bit more, but this has felt very, very nice to me in my overall ability to aim and hit some shots. Moving on down here to the movement tab, double tap sprint forward. You want to have this on sprint. You could technically have this on auto sprint. I believe I was running into some issues with it having it on auto sprint, so I like to have it kind of just on sprint. It doesn't really mess with me too much. Of course, sprinting is my left joystick. I've toggled slide to my right joystick because I have that custom set. You can custom map your buttons, so I'm not going to do that because everyone's going to custom map theirs to something different. I try to play basically on a tactical layout from Call of Duty, as that's what feels comfortable to me, what I've played first-person shooters on for a long time. Down here, zoom, of course, is on my left bumper because I play with a Scuff and Vision controller, so it shows up as Xbox buttons, not PlayStation buttons. It's just the top triggers. I like to aim and zoom with my top bumpers instead of the bottom triggers. Steady scope, this is just going to be my right stick. Infantry aim zoom sensitivity is going to be at an 80. That basically gives me 80% of my, infantry aim sense, or, what I have everything set to. So I like to have that just to kind of dial it back a little bit. It helps you not overcorrect as much. And then down here, I've actually toggled these so that way I'm on 80 for all the lower zooms. And then when you start getting up to that 4.5 or 5, I have it lowered down to a 70. That way it gives me a little bit less of my sensitivity. So that way I overcorrect less at bigger zooms. It just helps you miss less shots at distance. And the last thing you guys need to mess with here is just going to be under interact/reload. You guys want to make sure this is on reload is tap and interact is hold. That's going to be great, of course, when the Battlefield BR comes out here. That'd probably be flipped around, but for right now, for multiplayer, this is what you should have it set at. Now back here at the menu, we are just in the control settings. We're not really going to mess with the buttons and controls because that's going to be custom for what you map it, which you can do right in here. That's going to be totally personal preference. I'm not going to go through that and explain all that to you guys. You can definitely mess with that yourselves. What we really need to pay attention to is going all the way down to the very, very bottom, because this is all gunner, helicopter, aircraft. I'm just trying to make sure your infantry settings are good because I'm not much of a gunner or a pilot. I like to make sure I'm on the ground. That's where I'm most effective. So you want to go down here to the very, very bottom, controller tuning, And this is basically where you're going to find all of your dead zones. So controller vibration on or off doesn't really matter. I have like less rumble packs, so for me it just feels natural to have a little bit of feedback, but that's really about it. You can do whatever you want right there, but this is where it gets to be very, very important. So your center dead zone and your axial dead zone can basically be as low as you possibly can get them, or that's what I'm saying they should be at, is as low as you can get them. If you think about it, your circular stick, when you have a dead zone, that is that center right there that just keeps expanding, and that means that when you expand that center, that is the expanding the dead zone, that is the area in which your stick does not pick up anything, any type of movement at all. We want that to be as small as possible, aka for me, I plan a 0, 0. So I recommend that. Your max input threshold for your left stick can be at a 60. That way you only need 60% of the total area of the stick for your maximum movement to kick in. That means I can sprint quicker than having to, if I was to have this at 100. I don't need it at 100. I think having it at 60 is perfectly acceptable, and I think that's what you guys should have it at. You move on down here to your right stick. Once again, plan the lowest dead zone you possibly can. It'll help everything kick in faster. I believe that's the move. If you have stick drift on your controller, then you're gonna have some issues right there. Put it as low as your controller will allow and you feel comfortable with. Your max input threshold, this is not up for debate, should stay at 100. That's your aiming stick. We don't need to take away any of that circumference of that analog stick, because that's all we got to be able to aim with. So if you start limiting that, that's when you start having, you know, movements towards the end of your range of motion, which you're not going to feel right. So we don't want to have that, you know, limited at all. By the way, I do have dead zones on my left and my right triggers, just because they're mouse click triggers and they're so sensitive. Sometimes they click in automatically. Otherwise, your dead zone should be at a 0. Now we're going to be back here out of that controller menu. The gameplay menu, by the way, is just going to have a bunch of settings we've already adjusted. So we don't really have to worry about going in here for anything. This is just kind of like your basic. If you don't want to get really into the settings menu, you can adjust a lot of regular, kind of relatively important things like this from here. But overall, you definitely want to adjust everything and fine tune it, kind of like set it, forget it. You don't have to do it again. So you might as well put the time in and understand it right now. So now what we're going to do next is go into the graphics tab. And this is where, if you are on PC, there will be some things I can show you, but I'm trying to make sure that I showcase things that are going to help out everybody. So this right here, all your graphics quality settings, this is going to be like if you're on PC. I'll show it very quickly because everyone's got a different system. But largely speaking, I'd recommend putting stuff on low and then seeing what's going to have a high or a low effect on your CPU and your VRAM and your GPU, and seeing, you know, what you can possibly deal with. Generally speaking, lower settings are going to be good. You don't need high settings to have the game look great, or ultra or anything else like that. The game will look just perfectly fine on low. But getting back in here to what everyone should be looking at. So this right here, your world brightness, sometimes you might want to dial this back even from 50 to like maybe 45 or 43. All that's going to do is take a bit of the edge off in terms of going from inside to outside. Everyone knows that Battlefield's got crazy sun glare, so that can help you right there. They do actually have a built-in sharpness feature. Mine is currently at 80. I like my game to look a little bit more crispy, so I'd recommend kind of mess with this a little bit if you want a smoother experience. Obviously, don't mess with the slider. If you want a bit of a sharper experience, I'd recommend putting this up. If you guys like the way my gameplay looks, then I do have an 80 sharpness right there. Now we can go on down here before we get into any of the advanced stuff, but basically get down to your camera settings. Your field of view is going to be at 120, of course. Down here after that, we have your weapon motion blur, your world motion blur, camera shake amount, and these are 3 massively crucial settings. These look really cool in trailers and cinematic stuff, not for gameplay. So dial this back to 0 and 0. And your camera shake amount, this is going to be at like, you know, probably the max is like 150 or something. You want this to be at 50, so that way stuff doesn't, like, you know, go bouncing around on you. You want to be able to see what's going on in your game, not have your screen jostling around, because Lord knows there's a lot of explosions in Battlefield. After that, reduce camera sprint bobbing. You want to have that on. Vignette, turn this off. That is that little sort of like shadow around your screen. You don't want that on. Film grain, turn that completely out. That is not beneficial. And of course, down here, you guys can see it play on a full screen monitor. I'd recommend full screen if you don't need to use another screen. I'd recommend playing full screen, playing 1440p. That's my refresh rate. Also, if you're playing on PC, turn your vertical sync off. VSync is not good under any circumstance. Do not have that on. Now something for absolutely everybody. Down here in your infantry HUD motion and your vehicle HUD motion, turn that off. Basically what that does is, you know how you have your ammo and you have your other elements of your HUD on your screen. Well, if let's say you're getting shot at in a tank or anything else like that, those elements will jostle around. We don't want to have that happen. So we turn that off so that way they just stay planted on our screen and they don't move around at all. Very, very useful to be able to do that. Before we get into the advanced settings here, I'll show you guys some other stuff. Your icons and indicators, I keep the icons at 100%. That way I can see that, and I'll show you guys some other, color tricks with those. Icons, we can go edit those if we want to, and same with the crosshair indicators, but let's go back up to one of the other settings. Back here at the top for your advanced settings underneath graphics, just where we were, I'm just going to show you guys this real quick. Your fixed resolution scale should be at 100. I have always believed in enabling NVIDIA Reflex low latency, as long as you have an NVIDIA graphics card, and your performance overlay can be on simple. I like to have that. It's just up in the top corner there. It allows me to see some extra frames and stuff without taking up any real estate. Now I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit because there's basically one thing we want to be able to change, and that's going to be in our advanced HUD settings. We're going to go in here, click on edit, and the absolute only thing I've changed is my minimap size. I changed this to large. That way I have the largest minimap in the bottom corner. And it is the easiest for me to see the other icons. I've not messed with any of this other stuff here. Just keep that rotation on. You can see I haven't messed with anything else. Just leave it all as is and you guys will be perfectly fine. Still in the graphics tab right here at the very bottom, we're gonna go into the HUD icons underneath icons and indicators. So we're gonna go check that out real quick. So this right here, you really don't have to do a whole lot, but what we need to do is edit just a couple of things. So your objective icons opacity, I'd recommend turning this to 80. That way you can still see them, but they're not going to be overly, clustering on your screen or cluttering up your screen. Your objective icons opacity when zoomed, that means when you're obviously aimed down sight, that means that they're going to be a 40% opacity. So they're not really taking up your screen real estate. And then of course, objective icons opacity occluded, that's going to be at like 20%, basically when you're not really looking around. We don't need all this random crap on your screen when you're trying to look around in game. Now coming from the HUD icons, we're gonna go down here to crosshairs and indicators. I'm gonna click in here. So this right here, I think is very, very underlooked or just overlooked. Crosshair opacity, of course you wanna keep it at 100, right? And you can see the differences over here on the right side. I know my face cam kind of covers it, but your crosshair intensity can basically be at whatever. You can have it at 100. I personally have mine at 85. That way it still stays and shows up on my screen, but it doesn't need to absolutely overbear everything. So I'd recommend maybe turning that down just a little bit. Otherwise, leave it at 100. Not going to make or break your game. I keep it at full white. I don't think it needs to be any different. Crosshair thickness, I actually have mine on the thickest, in which you guys can, of course, mess with it. And you can see it obviously when you're, a little bit better actually when you're probably in game. But I would probably put this on thick. That way it stands out a little bit from when you're in game. There's a lot of stuff going on and it helps to kind of be able to have that good centering point constantly right there. Now we're gonna go down here underneath your hit indicator intensity. You can just have this at 70. I've dialed this back a little bit from 100. And of course your kill color, armor soft hit color, and your armor hard hit color can be dialed in just a little bit. So your kill color, this right here is very nice because this is what makes your game look a little bit more vibrant on screen, is that you can click on this and you can basically go and you can see your current right there. I'm just going to go here and find the orange that I had. But you can see that I'll just go ahead and mess with this. We're going to go find ourselves a nice sort of like very saturated orange. And after that, that's basically going to be our current. Click onto that. You can do the same thing for any of those. See what's the stock color. Go ahead and choose a more vibrant, saturated version of it. That'll help stuff just pop out a little bit more on your screen, which I quite like. So I'd recommend for you guys to go ahead and do that. Otherwise, everything else down here is left the same. All right, now what I want you to do, since we were just talking about your HUD and everything, go to the accessibility tab. And what we're gonna do is go right down in here to your color profiles. And this is gonna help you again with those HUD icons. So this right here is going to be on custom, and the reason mine is on custom is because I've gone ahead and shows every single color here, and I've made it, as you can see, a much more vibrant version of the color that was existing there already. So the enemy color, if I want that to be more of a bright orange, that's more of a darker or a bright orange, or more of a saturated orange, we have a saturated green, saturated blue. Everything in my game looks more saturated, and that's what helps my icons pop out on screen for me. So I'd recommend taking the time to go through and do all these. It'll make your game look significantly better. After that, you really don't have to do anything in the accessibility tab. We've pretty much set you guys fully up. Now we're gonna go into something that's very minor, but can help you make the game sound a little bit better. Don't pay attention to the master volume. It's normally at 100. I'm just recording the settings thing right now, so I don't need to hear as much. But I would recommend turning your music down if you don't really want to hear any of that music. I've never really liked hearing a bunch of music in game. But what's the configuration here, what you guys need to have is the audio mix of war tapes. This makes your game sound a lot better. You hear a lot more stuff, and frankly, it kind of puts you in the battle a little bit more than the default. So I'd recommend doing that. All right, well, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, should be the exact way to make your game look significantly better. Here's just a quick little look at my profile. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, give it a like, make sure you guys subscribe, check out this other video on screen, and I'll see y'all next time.